Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we explore a highly resonant case that captures the intersection of mental health, infamous history, and digital scrutiny. The disappearance and death of Elisa Lam.
Yeah, this is a story that it's really gone far beyond just a missing persons case, hasn't it? It's become this kind of digital age parable. If you listening right now have spent any time on true crime forums or watched those unexplained mystery videos online, you've definitely seen it.
Oh, absolutely, that image.
That image, that bizarre flickering surveillance video, 4 minutes and 2 seconds long.
It's completely unforgettable. As Elisa Lam, she walks into the elevator at the Cecil Hotel in LA, this infamous place, and she starts pressing like a whole bunch of buttons, almost randomly, it seems.
Right.
Then she's peering out into the hallway really nervously, doing these strange, unsettling hand gestures, almost like she's talking to someone or maybe hiding from something just out of frame, something we never actually see.
And that footage, which the LAPD released nearly 2 weeks after she went missing, that was the spark. It just blew up. It took this, local investigation and made it this huge global internet thing almost overnight.
Yeah.
The sheer weirdness of it, those 4 minutes, it just didn't have an easy answer. So people got hungry, hungry for some kind of big dramatic explanation.
So, okay, our mission today is pretty clear then. We're going to unpack the actual facts, the stuff from the sources you gave us, and put them side by side with all those internet theories.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll look at the cultural side, too, this whole digital obsession that's clung to the case for, over a decade now, even though there's an official finding.
Exactly. We want to show you how the facts really start to dismantle the fiction when you look closely.
All right, let's get into it. Okay, so to really get why this case went so viral, we need to start with Elisa herself, and maybe even more importantly, the location. Elisa Lam, she was 21, a student from Vancouver, Canada, traveling alone down the West Coast.
Right, a solo trip through California, and she checks into the Cecil Hotel on January 28th, 2013.
And that place, the Cecil Hotel, I know they rebranded it later as Stay on Main, but the name Cecil just sticks.
It really does. And it's not just some random hotel, is it? Its location and its history are absolutely central to how this whole story spiraled. It's this building in downtown LA that has this incredibly dark, long history. It practically oozes bad vibes, you could say.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that history, because that context, I think, is what really set the stage for all the conspiracy theories later on.
Well, it's not just one thing. It's decades of incidents. The hotel's been linked to multiple suicides going way back. People jumping from windows, violent deaths, and then there are the really famous connections.
Like the serial killers.
Exactly. 2 of them, actually. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, he lived there for a while in the mid-'80s. Reports say he'd just ditch his bloody clothes in the hotel dumpsters. And then later, Jack Unterweger, an Austrian serial killer, he stayed there too while he was active in LA. So this history, this established darkness, it created this narrative expectation, When Elisa vanished, people's minds immediately went to foul play or something supernatural. The Cecil itself almost became a character in the story.
That makes total sense. It felt like the perfect, almost cliched setting for a tragedy. Okay, so let's walk through the timeline. She checks in late January. What happens next leading up to that video?
So she checks in January 28th. Initially, she's put in a shared room, like a hostel-style setup they had. But our sources say she was moved to a private room pretty quickly.
Why was that?
Apparently, her roommates complained to the staff. They described her behavior as odd, and that's, an important early sign. It suggests her underlying mental health condition might have already been causing some issues.
Okay, so just 3 days later, January 31st.
Yeah.
That's the last day anyone officially saw her alive.
Correct. Reports say she was seen wandering around the hotel that day. At one point, staff even had to escort her out of an area that was off limits to guests because she was acting, quote, erratically.
And then she misses her scheduled check-in call with her family back in Canada.
Yes, and that's when they report her missing. Understandably, very worried.
So for almost 3 weeks after that, it's just confusion, nothing concrete.
Pretty much. The police are investigating, but there's very little physical evidence. No signs of a struggle in her room, no forced entry, nothing like that. It's baffling. And then, February 19th, 2013, that's when the case takes that really grim, unforgettable turn.
And it starts with complaints from Hotel guests, right? Not police work initially.
Exactly. Guests, particularly on the lower floors, started complaining to the hotel staff.
First about low water pressure, I remember reading, but then it got much worse.
Much worse, yeah. People started saying the water tasted weird, it looked strange, had an odd color. One guest apparently described the water coming out black at first, then turning into this sort of sickening foam. Ugh, just awful to imagine.
Truly. So these complaints lead the hotel maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, to go check the rooftop water supply.
Yeah.
There are these 4 huge water tanks up there that feed the whole building.
And that's where.
That's where he finds her. Lopez discovers Elisa Lam's body inside one of those massive rooftop water tanks. And the circumstances naturally just poured gasoline on the fire of speculation.
Horrific. And getting her out was complicated too, wasn't it?
Extremely. These tanks are big, about 8 feet across, 10 feet tall. They had to drain the whole tank first. And then, because the access hatch on top was too small for a recovery operation, they actually had to cut a hole in the side of the tank to get her body out.
Wow.
She was found naked, her body bloated from being in the water. But Lopez noted something really crucial, something that actually complicates the mystery for the internet theories, but maybe simplifies it for the investigators.
What was that?
He found the lid to the water tank was open, or at least it wasn't latched or locked from the outside. It was just resting on top, or maybe slightly ajar. Okay, so she wasn't sealed inside by someone else.
That observation points away from her being trapped in there by a third party. It's a critical detail that often gets lost in the noise.
Right. That detail about the open lid, it feels like the first major crack in that foul play story everyone wanted to believe. But it's still just one piece. We need to look at the official findings now, and the evidence that led the coroner away from ruling it a homicide. Hashtags, tag, the official conclusion versus the puzzles. So the moment her body is found like that, the internet just explodes. Everyone assumes, okay, serial killer, ghost, hotel cover-up, something sinister has to be involved. But the official report from the LA County Coroner's Office, it pushes back hard against all that sensationalism.
It really did. It was quite definitive. The official cause of death was ruled accidental drowning.
Accidental.
But crucially, they listed a significant contributing factor: severe bipolar disorder. The report explicitly stated there was no evidence of physical trauma consistent with an attack, no defensive wounds, nothing to suggest she was beaten or thrown into the tank forcibly.
And that official conclusion, it wasn't just a guess, right?
No.
It was based heavily on the forensic evidence, particularly the toxicology report. That seems like maybe the single most important piece of the puzzle.
I'd agree. That toxicology report really holds the key to understanding what likely happened. It's the clinical context that helps the mystery, well, dissolve into tragedy, really.
So what did it find?
It confirmed she had her prescribed medications in her system, things like an antipsychotic, a mood stabilizer, antidepressants, stuff consistent with treating bipolar disorder. But, and this is the absolute crucial part, the levels were very low.
Low meaning what exactly for someone unfamiliar with this condition?
Low meaning she was likely under medicating or perhaps had stopped taking her meds altogether shortly before her death. Now, for someone with severe bipolar I disorder, which involves potential psychotic features, suddenly stopping or drastically reducing medication, that can be catastrophic.
No, so.
It can trigger a major rebound effect, a severe manic or psychotic episode. And these episodes can involve extreme paranoia, hallucinations, seeing or hearing things that aren't there, and just a profound disconnect from reality.
Okay, so then we can connect that directly back to the elevator video we talked about. The official thinking isn't just, oh, she fell in. It's that she was likely experiencing a full-blown psychotic break, perceiving threats that weren't real.
Precisely. That frantic button pushing, peering out, hiding in the corner, the strange gestures. Those actions are incredibly consistent with someone in a severe paranoid state. The theory is she wasn't running from a real attacker in the hallway. She was likely reacting to internal stimuli, delusions perhaps.
And the elevator not moving might have just been because she hit the door hold button or all the floor buttons, confusing the system in her panic.
Exactly. And the physical aspect too, the idea of climbing up to the roof, getting onto that tank, we'll get into the logistics, but the kind of manic energy and distorted thinking that comes with a severe episode makes actions that seem impossible to us. Well, possible in that state. It shifts the narrative from unsolvable crime to tragic accident rooted in a health crisis.
Still, there are things in the autopsy report that online sleuths always point to, things they use to keep the cover-up theories alive. Like, I remember reading about notes mentioning subcutaneous blood pooling in the anal area.
Ah, yes. That's a classic example of how a lack of forensic knowledge can really fuel conspiracy theories. Pathologists address this specifically. That kind of pooling, also called lividity, is about blood settling in the lowest parts of the body after death due to gravity. Being submerged in water and the process of decomposition can absolutely affect how and where that happens. It's a normal postmortem change. It is not, by itself, evidence of sexual assault or trauma before death, which is what many online commentators immediately claimed. The coroner's job is precisely to tell the difference between changes after death and injuries before death, and they concluded this was decomposition-related. Foul play was ruled out.
Got it. Okay, let's tackle the other big hurdle for the official theory. Getting onto the roof in the first place. This is probably the biggest fuel for the foul play arguments, right?
Yeah.
The idea that it was locked down.
Absolutely. Our sources confirm the main doors and stairwells to the roof were supposed to be locked, often alarmed too. So for a guest just casually wandering up there seemed impossible. How did she do it alone?
That must have been a key question for the police.
It was, and they did find a likely answer, though it wasn't obvious. Police dogs tracking her scent lost the trail near a window on one of the upper floors, and that window, it opened directly onto an external fire escape.
Ah, so the fire escape. That was the way up. Hidden in plain sight almost.
That's the prevailing theory, yes. In that agitated, perhaps manic state, she likely went out the window, got onto the fire escape, and climbed it. Fire escapes, while maybe seeming daunting, are often more accessible than locked roof doors.
Okay, so she gets to the roof platform via the fire escape, but the challenge isn't over yet. She still has to get into one of those massive tanks.
Right. Let's picture these things again. Huge cylinders, 10 feet tall. You can't just hop in. There were ladders fixed to the sides of the tanks to allow maintenance access to the top hatch.
So she had to climb a 10-foot ladder next.
Correct. This is the final and arguably most physically demanding part of the sequence. And again, this points back to the likely mental state suggested by the toxicology. A person in a severe manic or psychotic episode can exhibit incredible, almost reckless physical energy. They might feel invincible, fearless, or compelled by delusions.
What kind of delusion might lead someone into a water tank?
It's impossible to know for sure, but speculation based on common symptoms includes feeling persecuted and needing to hide in an ultimate safe place, or maybe feeling contaminated and needing to cleanse oneself, or even just the disorganized thinking leading to a bizarre impulsive action without clear logic, climbing high, seeking refuge. These are possible themes.
And then the last crucial piece you mentioned earlier, the open lid. If that lid had been heavy and sealed shut from the outside.
That would be very hard to explain without involving someone else, likely hotel staff with access and tools. But Lopez finding the lid simply resting there, open or unsecured. That removes the major mechanical obstacle. It means she could have climbed up, opened the lid herself, and gotten in.
So the consensus view, backed by the coroner and police investigation, is manic episode, triggered by under medication, access roof via fire escape, climb tank ladder, open lid, entered tank voluntarily, perhaps seeking refuge or due to delusional thinking, and then tragically drowned, possibly as the episode subsided or she simply couldn't get out.
That's the sequence supported by the available evidence. It's incredibly tragic, complex, and disturbing. But it doesn't point towards a criminal act.
Okay, it's a compelling case based on the facts. But the internet, well, the internet wasn't buying it. Hashtag internet theories and cultural interpretations.
Right.
Despite that detailed official conclusion from the LA County coroner, the internet just collectively said, nope, not buying it. The story was already too weird, too compelling. The Cecil's history, that video.
Yeah.
It was just too much.
It really was. The mystery had taken root. So we have to talk about those major theories that went viral, starting with how people kept interpreting that elevator video.
Yeah, the video's ground zero for all the speculation.
Totally. The conspiracy view is basically she's running from someone, hiding from someone, maybe an attacker we can't see, maybe a serial killer playing games with her. The interpretation hinges on external malice, right? Someone else is the threat.
But the official view, the mental health perspective, armed with that toxicology report, paints a very different picture. It suggests the threat was internal.
Exactly. When you watch her movements through that lens, The wide-eyed look, the jerky gestures, hitting all the buttons, it aligns incredibly well with descriptions of acute psychosis or mania. The elevator maybe not moving because she jammed the system in her panic. That makes sense in that context. She wasn't necessarily fleeing a person. She might have been fleeing terrifying thoughts or hallucinations.
And once people decided to ignore that clinical possibility, well, the floodgates opened for other theories.
Oh, yeah. The supernatural stuff went huge, obviously. Given the Cecil's reputation, people immediately started talking ghosts, demonic influence, curses, all fueled by the hotel's dark past.
And then there was that truly bizarre connection people made to the movie Dark Water that really seemed to add fuel to the fire.
That coincidence is uncanny, you have to admit, and it's probably why that theory gained so much traction. You have this 2002 horror film, Dark Water, the American remake, specifically where a key plot point involves a young girl's body being found decomposing in a rooftop water tank of a creepy old building.
After residents complained about dark, tainted water.
Exactly. The parallels to Elisa's discovery are just chillingly precise. So for the online sleuths, this wasn't just a weird coincidence, it was evidence. Proof of, well, something strange. Maybe an alternate reality bleed through, a sinister synchronicity, some kind of supernatural echo. It layered this fictional horror onto the real-life tragedy.
Beyond the supernatural, there were the more grounded but still conspiratorial theories about foul play involving hotel staff, usually focused on that roof access issue.
Right. The thinking was, if the roof was locked, only staff could have gotten her up there or helped an attacker get her up there. So cover up. Hotel conspiracy.
And then things went really off the rails sometimes, like that biological weapon theory.
Yeah, that one was really up there. It's somehow connected Elisa's death to a tuberculosis outbreak that was happening in LA's nearby Skid Row area around the same time.
How do they even link those?
Vaguely, the theory, if you can call it that, suggested she was maybe involved in some kind of biological agent test, or had been deliberately infected, or was a carrier. It was never clear, just sinister sounding. These wild theories, they gain traction because they're dramatic. They make the event seem bigger, more significant than a personal tragedy. It fulfills that need for a grander narrative.
Which leads us straight into the whole phenomena of the digital detectives, this huge online community, this internet army that basically took over the case narrative.
Yeah, the rise of the internet sleuth culture was massive here. Millions of people worldwide suddenly felt empowered to solve the case from their keyboards. They jumped onto Reddit, YouTube, forums, dissecting every pixel of the video, every word of news reports.
And often completely dismissing the official findings from actual investigators and coroners.
Instantly. If the official report didn't fit the preferred narrative, usually foul play or supernatural, it was rejected as incompetent or, worse, part of the cover-up. The speed and anonymity of these platforms meant speculation could spread like wildfire, regardless of factual basis. Every tiny anomaly, every slight inconsistency was amplified and treated as definitive proof of conspiracy. It became this giant collaborative online game.
And part of that involved digging into Elisa's own online presence, didn't it? Her personal blog.
Yes, her Tumblr blog. She was very open on there about her struggles with bipolar disorder and depression. She wrote quite movingly, sometimes heartbreakingly, about feeling lost, about, quote, wasting her time.
Which, ironically, you'd think would support the official finding about her mental state.
You would think. But instead, the internet treated her blog like a set of cryptic clues. Every post was analyzed for hidden meanings, potential hints about enemies or secrets. It was taken out of context, distorted, used as fuel for speculation rather than understanding.
And then there was the really chilling detail, for the theorists anyway. Her blog kept updating after she died.
Right. That caused a huge stir initially. It seemed like undeniable proof that someone else was involved, right? A hacker, maybe the killer, someone controlling her account.
But there's a simple explanation for that too, isn't there?
There is. Tumblr had and still has a feature called the queue. It lets users write multiple posts in advance and schedule them to publish automatically over time, days, weeks, whatever you set. Elisa likely had posts queued up before she even arrived at the Cecil.
So they just kept posting automatically after her death, according to her schedule.
Exactly. A straightforward technical explanation. But for people already deep in the conspiracy mindset, it was irrefutable proof of something sinister. Her own words, her own scheduled posts were twisted into evidence against her. It shows how easily personal, tragic details can be weaponized online to fit a pre-existing narrative. Tag the consequences of digital obsession.
Okay, so this whole journey from a genuine mystery to this rampant online speculation and, frankly, exploitation,
Oh.
it really highlights a serious moral gray area, doesn't it? When does curiosity cross the line? Because this obsession had real-world consequences.
Devastating consequences. And the most prominent tragic example is what happened to the musician Pablo Vergara.
Who performed under the name Morbid.
That's right. The internet sleuths latched onto him and essentially decided he must be the killer. They targeted him relentlessly.
Why him? What was the supposed connection that seemed so random?
The connection was incredibly thin, almost non-existent, but it was enough for the online mob. Okay, so Vergara, as Morbid, had stayed at the Cecil Hotel. That was one link. But it was about a year before Elisa Lam's death.
Okay, so just being there at some point.
Yeah. And the other link was his artistic output. He's a metal musician. His work explores dark themes. He had a music video, I believe, that depicted violence, maybe a woman being harmed or killed, which is, not uncommon imagery in certain music genres.
So, dark art plus having stayed at the hotel a year earlier equals killer.
For the internet jury, yes. That flimsy coincidence was enough. They decided he fit the profile they wanted.
And the impact on him was severe.
Absolutely brutal. He received death threats constantly, vile hate mail, nonstop online harassment. His reputation was destroyed, his music career basically ruined, all based on completely unfounded speculation by anonymous people online, the actual police, the LAPD. They never even considered him a person of interest.
Wow.
But the digital mob didn't need proof. They had their suspect, and they carried out the sentence online. It wasn't about finding truth. It was a digital witch hunt looking for a villain. Anyone who fit, however loosely, would do.
It really forces us as consumers of true crime to think about our own role. That desire for a neat story, a clear bad guy, it can overshadow the complicated, messy, often unsensational truth, like a mental health crisis.
That need for narrative closure is so powerful. A murder story has drama, a chase, a motive, justice, or injustice. It's a structure we understand. But an accidental death stemming from an illness, it feels random, unfair. There's no one tangible to blame, maybe just biology or fate, and that's deeply unsatisfying for people. It's harder to process.
The media landscape didn't always help clarify things either, did it?
Yeah.
Thinking about that big Netflix docuseries from 2021, Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel.
Right. That series definitely brought the case back into the spotlight, but it also faced a fair bit of criticism for how it handled the narrative.
How so?
Well, the structure of it. It spent the vast majority of its runtime, like multiple episodes, diving deep into all the conspiracy theories, the ghosts, the dark water link, the potential cover-up,
Right.
interviewing the internet sleuths, really building up the mystery and a sensational aspect.
Before finally getting to the official conclusion.
Exactly. Only in the last part did it really lay out the coroner's findings, the toxicology, the fire escape theory, the likely explanation of a psychotic episode leading to accidental drowning. So critics argued it basically led the audience down the same rabbit hole the internet went down, prioritizing suspense and entertainment over presenting the factual conclusion up front.
It sort of validated the speculation by giving it so much screen time.
That was the critique, yeah. That it blurred the lines, perhaps unintentionally, between exploring the phenomenon of the obsession and actually fueling it. It shows just how strong the pull of the mystery is, even for professional documentary makers. The simple, sad truth isn't always seen as the best story. Hashtag analysis and takeaway.
So after laying out all the facts, the toxicology evidence, the likely fire escape route, the coroner's definitive ruling, we still have to ask that core question. Why does this case still hold such a grip? Why wasn't the official, albeit tragic, explanation enough for so many people?
Yeah, this is where we need to step back and look at the bigger picture culturally. Elisa Lam's story, I think, became this kind of mirror. It reflected the internet's intense hunger to find meaning, especially in chaotic or seemingly random events.
And the actual truth was maybe too random, too meaningless in a narrative sense.
Possibly. The reality, a young woman struggling with severe bipolar disorder, likely off her medication, experiencing a terrifying psychotic break, and ending up dying alone in a truly bizarre accident, it's profoundly sad. But it lacks a villain. It lacks a grand conspiracy. It lacks, for many, a satisfying story.
There's no external bad guy to pin it on. just illness and a tragic sequence of events.
And that is unsatisfying. The human brain, especially maybe in the collective echo chamber of the internet, often prefers a more dramatic narrative. The ghost story, the secret government plot, the hidden killer. These stories provide a sense of order, even if it's a sinister order. They give you someone or something to blame. It's psychologically easier, perhaps, to process murder at the haunted hotel than accidental death due to a mental health crisis. The latter forces us to confront really uncomfortable truths about vulnerability, mental illness, the fact that sometimes awful things happen without a clear reason or culprit.
So the case really becomes a lesson in media literacy almost, and in the ethics of how we consume true crime. It forces us to ask ourselves, are we genuinely seeking understanding and empathy for the victim, for Elisa Lam herself? Or are we just looking for entertainment, for a puzzle to solve, for a story that fits our expectations?
That's the critical self-reflection needed, I think, balancing empathy with the desire for a compelling narrative. The persistence of the Lam case, even now, really underscores our collective responsibility when engaging with public information, especially around sensitive topics like death and mental health. We have to be rigorous about distinguishing between complex realities and the simplified, often more dramatic narratives that gain traction online.
Because the consequences of getting it wrong, as we saw with Pablo Vergara, can be devastatingly real for innocent people.
Absolutely. And while the hotel itself tried to move on, rebranding as Stay on Main, partly to escape that dark association, the story, The Digital Ghost of Elisa Lam, it lingers. Her case serves as this potent digital age parable about how quickly facts can get twisted, ignored, or weaponized when they don't fit the story the public wants to hear.
So for you listening now, maybe the takeaway is to hold on to the facts we've discussed, the toxicology, the likely route, the coroner's expertise, and recognize that sometimes the most difficult truth is the one that lacks a simple villain or a neat resolution.
It's remembering the human complexity behind the sensational headlines.
A powerful thought. We have to remember Elisa Lam, the young woman behind the video, whose internal struggles tragically became public spectacle after her death.
Indeed. Always striving for the complex truth over the easy fiction.
That's a vital note to end on. Thank you. Next time on Threads of Truth, we examine another haunting mystery, the 1988 disappearance of Tara Calico, whose alleged photograph sparked decades of speculation and heartbreak.
Join us then as we continue to explore these tangled threads of truth.